Hey there, welcome to Summary Clips. In this video, I will summarize the book Think Again by Adam Grant. Have you ever heard of the name Mike Lazaridis? Mike Lazaridis is a brilliant inventor who made a fastest growing company in the 2000s, which is BlackBerry. As many of us know, BlackBerry had a cult following. Many of the high profiles like Oprah Winfrey, Barack Obama were using it. Mike dreamed up the idea for the BlackBerry as a wireless communication device for sending and receiving emails and nothing more than that. As of the summer of 2009, it accounted for nearly half of the US smartphone market. By 2014, its market share had plummeted to less than 1%. So where did Mike go wrong? When Mike created the BlackBerry, he was thinking like a scientist. He asked to himself, what if people could hold the device in their hands and type with their thumbs rather than their fingers? What if there was a single mailbox synchronized across devices? What if messages could be relayed through a server and appear on the device only after they were decrypted? If the BlackBerry's rise was due in large part to his success in scientific thinking as an engineer, its demise was in many ways the result of his failure in rethinking as a CEO. As the iPhone skyrocketed onto the scene, Mike maintained his belief in the features that had made the BlackBerry a sensation in the past. He was confident that people wanted a wireless device for work emails and calls, not an entire computer in their pocket with apps for home entertainment. And what happened then to iPhone and BlackBerry is history. This is what the book deals with, rethinking our ideas and beliefs. Brené Brown, PhD, #1 New York Times best-selling author of Dare to Lead says, This is the right book for right now. Why rethinking is more needed today than ever. Most of us take pride in our knowledge and expertise and in staying true to our beliefs and opinions. That makes sense in a stable world where we get rewarded for having conviction in our ideas. The problem is that we live in a rapidly changing world where we need to spend as much time rethinking as we do thinking. This video will be structured into 3 parts: individual rethinking, interpersonal rethinking, collective rethinking. Individual rethinking. How can an individual start to rethink? Become a scientist. Sweet spot of confident humility. Enjoy being wrong. Engage in arguments. Become a scientist. Author's colleague Phil Tetlock, a political science writer, discovered that as we think and talk, we often slip into the mindsets of 3 different professions: preachers, prosecutors, politicians. We go into preacher mode when our sacred beliefs are in jeopardy. We deliver sermons to protect and promote our ideals. We enter prosecutor mode when we recognize flaws in other people's reasoning. We marshal arguments to prove them wrong and win our case. We shift into politician mode when we are seeking to win over an audience. We campaign and lobby for the approval of our constituents. When we enter into these modes, it prohibits rethinking. So, the author asks us to become a scientist, not the literal profession, but the way scientists think and talk. As a scientist, you need to be constantly aware of limits of your understanding. You are expected to doubt what you know and curious about what you don't know and update your views based on new data. Even Einstein, after opening physics with his theories of relativity, opposed quantum revolution. He said, to punish me for my contempt of authority, fate has made me an authority myself. Sweet spot of confident humility. Author names the second chapter as armchair quarterback versus imposter syndrome. Armchair quarterback is someone who offers his or her opinion on something without actually being an expert on the topic. Imposter syndrome is someone who doubts their skills, talents, despite clear evidence of their accomplishments. If you think for a while, we all have been in this position. Both these mindsets should be avoided according to the author. So, what then is the sweet spot? The sweet spot lies in being confident humility. It means you can be confident in your ability to achieve a goal in the future while maintaining the humility to question whether you have the right tool in the present. Enjoy being wrong. People who are right a lot change their mind a lot. If you don't change your mind frequently, you are going to be wrong a lot. Jeff Bezos. Everyone makes wrong assumptions, but the way we react after making wrong assumptions differ. Some people won't admit that they did something wrong. Some people will accuse others of their mistake. Psychologists find that admitting we were wrong doesn't make us look less competent. It's a display of honesty and a willingness to learn. Yes, some damage will be there, but it's less damage when compared to holding on to the old wrong assumptions. Engage in arguments. Since the author suggested confident humility, it doesn't mean that we should be softer while voicing out our opinions. Instead, he suggests that conflict is necessary in a team, home, workplace, but conflict should be confined with tasks alone. Sometimes conflict spills over and spoils the relationship. Whenever arguing, be aware of the path the argument takes on. Steer away when it starts to strain the relationship. In a great argument, our adversary is not a foil but a propeller. Interpersonal rethinking. One of the important hurdles to start rethinking as a group is forming stereotypes. Strong opinions like stereotypes are less likely to be reconsidered. We identify with our group or tribe. We distinguish ourselves from our adversaries. They are everything we are not. We preach the virtues of our side. We prosecute the vices of our rivals. As social beings, we are motivated to seek belonging and status. Group identification helps us achieve these goals. As the author puts in a beautiful way, conformity with group orthodoxy maintains cohesion. Status is gained by holding the purest expression of these views, but these are arbitrary and based on flimsy foundations. So, how to make the other person rethink? Counterfactual thinking, which is considering alternative realities, imagining different circumstances and outcomes. The second one is asking open ended questions. And the third is engaging in reflective listening. The last one is affirming the person's desire and ability to change. Collective rethinking. The focus should not be on being right, but on building the skills to consider different views and argue productively about them. Going back to the BlackBerry and Apple story, one might think Apple's renaissance revolves around the lone genius of Steve Jobs, that it was his conviction and clarity of vision that gave birth to the iPhone. The reality is that he was dead set against the mobile phone category. In 2004, a small group of engineers, designers, and marketers pitched Jobs on turning their hit product, the iPod, into a phone. Can you guess what Steve Jobs said? Why would we want to do this? This is the dumbest idea I've ever heard. He hated cell phone companies and didn't want to design products within the constraints that carriers imposed. He wanted Apple to be a computer company, not a cell phone company. But his team members worked together to persuade Jobs that he didn't know what he didn't know and urged him to doubt his convictions. Only after 6 months of discussion, Jobs gave a go-ahead for the experimentation. Arthur asks us to look at the perspective of Jobs' team members because they were the ones who started to rethink about their successful product. So, it's important for our workplace, society, altogether to cultivate the habit of rethinking. So, what are the prerequisites for rethinking? Acknowledging binary bias, that is, the tendency to seek clarity by reducing a spectrum of categories to two opposites. So, amplify the range of views for a given topic. The second one is interrogate information before consuming it. Third one is rank and popularity are not proxies for reliability. The last is the sender of information is often not its source. Check whether it's verified source. Escaping tunnel vision. Usually, when we get a job, we tend to cling on it for a long time. But the author asks us to revisit our choices which were taken a long time ago. In career choices, identity foreclosure often begins when adults ask kids, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" Pondering that question can foster a fixed mindset about work and self. Michelle Obama writes, "I think it's one of the most useless questions an adult can ask a child. What do you want to be when you grow up?" As if growing up is finite, as if at some point you become something uncertain. Our identities are open systems, and so are our lives. We don't have to stay tethered to old images of where we want to go or where we want to be. The simplest way to start rethinking our options is to question what we do daily. The three biggest takeaways I would say is this book is an invitation to let go of knowledge and opinions that are no longer serving you well, and to anchor your sense of self in flexibility rather than consistency. Thinking again can help you generate new solutions to old problems and revisit old solutions to new problems. A hallmark of wisdom is knowing when it's time to abandon some of your most treasured beliefs and some of the most cherished parts of your identity. If you like this video, click the like button so that it reaches many people. Thank you.